Hey, we're back with Form Check Friday. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to Form Check Friday. We were off last week. I went up to my favorite place in Idaho, which is Redfish Lake. It's up in the Sawtooth Mountains, about 2.5 hours north of Boise, where I live, and had some friends come into town, and we took the weekend and just kind of went up there, took Clint. This is what it looks like. As you can see, beautiful mountain lake and super fun. So that's why I wasn't available, but we're back now and ready to handle your form checks. Quick training update on me, not a whole lot to report. I took it easy with friends in town, which was good for my shoulder. I'm rehabbing some kind of injury in there. I don't know what it is. I don't want to go to the orthopedic surgeon for the 4th time, so I'm just hoping it's going to heal. So I've taken it a little bit easy on the weights, kind of pushed my workouts, did some light stuff, used the safety squat bar instead of a normal squat bar. That position seemed to irritate it, and it's feeling better. So I did some normal bench this week and some dumbbell presses, and it didn't feel great, but the next day it wasn't any more pissed off, so that's a good sign, and I'm optimistic. So other than that, kind of par for the course, boring punch the clock training week, which is how these things go. But enough about me. Let's get into your form checks. We've got a couple this week. I think we got 5 or 6 and some questions. So I'm pumped to be back, and thank you guys all for submitting. All right, so we'll get into it. For those of you who don't know or who are joining for the first time, I haven't seen any of these, so we're doing this all in real time, and let's go. So, okay, first one we got. Hey, Paul, submitting my first squat form check here. Cool. Top set of 5 on the intermediate B program from Radically Simple Strength. Started intermediate B a few weeks ago with a slight reduction in weight, but this week I'm back to my previous 5 rep max. That's kind of how it works. Usually at the end of the novice phase, you're grinding and you're kind of beat up, and so anytime you switch to a new program, you find your starting weights based off percentages. There's a chart in the book, and that usually constitutes a little bit of a deload. And it'll take you a few weeks to get back, but really it's nice. Most of the time guys welcome it because it's a little bit of a break. You let off some of the accumulated fatigue from the end, pushing the end of the novice phase, and then you get to do a little reset, and then you're ready to blow past those numbers, hopefully. So good. Okay. What I've been working on, shoving my knees out harder based on previous Form Check Fridays and your bottom of the squat video. Realized I wasn't getting a stretch in my adductors. Looking forward to finding out what else is wrong in order to improve and move confidently into new PR territory. Thanks in advance for your expert critique. All right, well, let's see how expert I can be here. And we'll check this one out. All right, where's my little doodad that shuts all this off? Here we go. Cool, that's less distracting. Okay, let's take a look. I will watch a few of these and just see what we see, and then I'll make some comments. Stance looks pretty good. Bar position looks great. Yeah, definitely in the right place. Wrists are straight. Some hip drive there. Let's see. I mean, these are pretty clean. Yeah, no knee slide. Driving the hips up. What is this, 300? Sitting back into the bottom. Let me watch one more and then I'll comment. Your depth might be a little shallow. Like, I think you're pretty good there. The hips look like they're kind of going up and, sorry, back a little bit. Like you can see if you watch your shin, it kind of pulls back a little bit on the way up, which is going to happen to some degree. but it just looks like the whole system is shifting back a little bit. In other words, you might, let me watch again. I mean, I think this is just kind of a heavy set for you. And so it's not going to be perfect, but these are solid. Not a lot is like falling apart here. Like no glaring errors. The overall movement is very good. I just want to see if you're lifting your chest at all. No? And you guys know I'm always looking at head movement. So it does look like you're kicking your head back a tiny bit, but not anything I'm too worried about. What I would say is to focus on, if you watch your knees or your leg down here, your shin. I mean, these are fine. You might want to think about, and I'm kind of nitpicking here, but you might want to think about as you're driving up with the hips, not like keeping your knees forward. So when you lean over and you shove them forward and out, you're doing a great job of that. Don't worry about that. You're sitting back into the bottom. But as you're driving back up, you might want to think about, try and keep the knees forward a little bit more as you drive up. It's kind of hard to do because they will pull back a little bit. It's just a natural thing that happens when you stand up. But what you don't want to do is have your whole system kind of shift back as you're coming up. You want to keep that bar right over the middle of the foot the whole time. And I mean, that's a great one. You could get like a little bit more depth, like barely. Let me see if I can pause this and catch you right at the bottom. I mean, that's perfect. You're perfect there. So I don't know if it was like that on every rep. Like I think on this one, you could see your back angle kind of changes a little bit more horizontal, like very slightly. You lean over a little bit more, like you're letting the chest drop just a little bit on the way up. But it's really not much. Like I'm really reaching here. So just think right here, like knees forward. Like don't let the knees come back as much. Keep that chin tucked. Even you're not lifting it a lot. They're not coming back a lot. These are great. I guess I would say that now that we know you have the form very clean, I would work on more of the, I don't want to say intangibles, but like more of like your thought process in how you approach the effort in the squat. So we know you can take this, we know you can do the movement correctly. Now let's dial in the extra special sauce, which is like, where do you, like the dynamic transition out of the bottom, where are you going to focus your effort, those kind of things. And if you notice, your reps are very smooth all the way down, all the way up. They're sort of the same. And I mean, you're driving up pretty hard there. Like that rep in particular, I think is the one that's getting me. I'd like to see a little bit more of a dynamic transition where it's like a bounce. We can tell that you're bouncing off your groin muscles. And to do that, on that one, you probably needed to go a tiny bit deeper. But also, yeah, so you're a little shallow on this one, but also you need to let it happen, right? So you need to let yourself, you're controlling it very well on the way down, but then you need to just like let yourself bounce, which means you got to speed up a little bit. Don't loosen up, but just go into the bottom with a little bit of speed so you can tap into that rebound, get the stretch reflex, and then drive up. And so if you're thinking slow, and then right like 2 inches above the bottom, you're like, all right, here we go. I'm going to drop it. Boom. And you come out of it with a little bit more speed. You'll definitely hit depth and you'll get a lot more help on the way up. But other than that, these are great. I don't really have a lot of negatives of criticism for your squats. They look Excellent. Let's see. I just want to make sure I answered your questions. Shoving my knees out harder. Knees look good. Yeah, the stretch in the adductors, like on the rep that I paused the first time, you were like well below depth. So that's where the bounce is. I think part of the reason that you're not like feeling it is that you're too controlled the whole time. It's very intentional, which is good. But for like a split second right above the bottom and going into the bottom, you have to let it speed up a little bit so you can feel that bounce, right? So you can allow it. If you just go very slowly all the way down and then slowly on the way up, you're not letting that dynamic stretch and rebound happen. Okay, so just like slow and then right above the bottom, like boom, you're gonna let it bounce. As Rip used to say, you should say to yourself as you hit the bottom, boing, like make the sound of a spring, boing, which sounds ridiculous, but it works. So try that. Try being a little bit more dynamic with it. You can also try playing around with the bounced pause squat variation, which I have on my website at hornstrength.com/videos. If you go to down here, bounce pause squat. This one is an exercise where you're just like working on the bounce. So you take it down, you pause, and then you bounce your butt up a couple times just to feel that stretch reflex. So maybe play around with those with the empty bar and your first set with weight, just to feel the stretch reflex a little bit better, and then move on to your normal warm-up progression. So that should work fairly well. Okay, let's get rid of that. And we'll get rid of this and we will move on to the next guy. Thanks for submitting. All right. The good doctor's back. What do we have here? I watched an old video of yours about finding the bottom of the squat. It was about rubber bands and scissor lifts. Yes. Okay. I widened my stance and which already felt wide. So that I feel the stretch in my groin just below parallel. It feels really wide, but I think it helped the rest of my form. Let me know what you think. Okay, let's see if it's too wide. All right. That does look very wide. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You're just real flexible. So you're also doing the scoop thing again, but we'll talk about that. These are, yeah. Okay. So I think that stance is going to be too wide. I don't think that's the solution to the problem here. I kind of want to see a video of you from like directly behind with the camera placed right behind you so I can see how your knees and toes are lining up here. Because this is an unnecessarily wide stance, I think. The effort was good. You know, it's worth taking a shot at it. But I suspect that your knee's still going to be inside your toe with this stance. So, yeah, okay, let's go back to next time. Let's go back to your normal stance, heel shoulder width, maybe a little wider than normal, but not this much. And see if you can get me a video directly behind you so that I can see, like put the camera down low so I can see your feet, your knees, your whole body. But that scoop right there is still part of the problem, right? So your hips are going, see that? They go back and up instead of just straight up, which means you're back on your heels and you're trying to keep that bar over the middle of your foot. So everything is like you're sitting back on the way down. So yeah, a little better on that one, less of the scoop. Yeah. Okay. Again, this is not really, we're missing the bounce. We're missing the stretch reflex, the spring. This is down and then push back and up, down and then push back and up. And I think, let me see how you're leaning over here. So you can see how your back angle changes. Again, I think I've drawn this for you before, where you assume this back angle on the way down, right? We're here. And then, but on the way up, you're going to be more leaned over, right? So now this is the back angle that you want to be in. And it's more, you were like this. Sorry, that's a terrible line. You were up much more vertical prior to the bottom. So you didn't finish leaning over all the way, okay? And you can see that your knee has like really shot back from your toe here. So as you're pushing, your butt goes up, you lean over more, the shins come back, the knees come back, and everything's going back towards your heels. So to save that, you have to lean over more to keep that bar over the middle of your foot. So kind of like what I talked about with the last guy, where you need to think about, and this is not the most, this is a cue that we don't give out that frequently because it's usually not a problem. But you know, most people have a hard time getting their knees forward enough, but there's also the thing of keeping your knees forward as you come up. So if you allow them to shoot back too much, and again, they will come back a little bit, but if you allow the knee as you're pushing your butt up to shoot back too much, then you're going to lean over more, right? Because all your weight goes back to your heels. So you have to put the knees forward and out on the way down. And then as you're driving up with the hips, you need to think about keeping them forward. Like, don't let the knee shoot back right away. And if you just think about keeping your knee where it is over your toe as you drive your hips up, that'll prevent some of this scooping, right? So we want to be, let me see if I can pause this in a couple places and just check your knees. So your knee looks, you know, I think the wide stance is kind of throwing this off, but like your knee actually looks like it's kind of behind your toe, which is okay if that's the right stance width for you, but I think this is too wide for you. So what I want is next time, okay, go back to a normal stance, maybe very slightly wider, like an inch wider than shoulder width. Make sure the toes are pointed out enough, 35, 40 degrees. And then I want you to lean over right away and focus on getting your knees as far, like as close to the tip of your toes as you can. And you're kind of built, I don't want to, not being negative here, but you're built kind of in an interesting way that makes your squat mechanics look different, right? You're very flexible. You have kind of unique proportions here, which is, it is what it is, and you can work with it. So try and get your knee, like lean over and focus the first part of the way down on pointing your nipples at the ground and getting your knees like out and like over your toes as quickly as you can. Keep the weight balanced, right? Don't dump the weight forward, you know, over your head or get so that your heels lift up. But I want you to think kind of like toes. I'm going to push my knees towards my toes for the first half of the descent. And then once you're there, then you can think about sitting down into the bottom. And as you come out of the bottom, think about keeping your knee there. Don't let it shoot back, right? And part of that is going to be keeping your chest up. So you don't want to push your hips back, have your knees shoot back, and then change your back angle so it becomes more horizontal, because that's where this scooping thing comes from. You want to, let me see if I can get your back angle kind of like here, like this is a good back angle for you, okay? And forgive me if I said something different earlier, but after looking at this again, this seems right for you, okay? And so you want to kind of maintain this and focus on driving your butt up, but not back. We don't want your hips going back. So from here, you're thinking, I'm going to keep my knees forward. I'm not going to let them shoot back this way. I'm going to keep my chest up. I'm not going to let my chest drop. And I'm going to focus on keeping my chest up while I drive my hips. Now it will change very slightly, 1 or 2 degrees more horizontal for a second while you do that hip drive. But then that angle will lock back in. And so for once you come out of the bottom, I want to see this back angle, hips coming up and shoulders coming up, kind of at the same rate till you get to the top. Now again, right out of the bottom, we should see your butt move a little bit first, but then after like an inch, this all evens out again. So you're not dropping your butt and taking that more horizontal back angle here, you know, all the way up. And I think you kind of corrected a little bit. Like that was much better, but the hip drive was late. Yeah. You could still see you're kind of pushing back a little bit. Yeah, they're getting better towards the end of the set. That was pretty good right there. Still taking a little too long to set the back angle. Yeah, okay. So I'm kind of zeroing in on that one rep where you really shot your hips back, and then after that you kind of corrected it. So it seems like you kind of felt like that one was wrong. Maybe you felt yourself lean over too much and you corrected it. Overall, I would say lean over faster, get the knees more forward, closer to your toes on the way down, and try and keep them there on the way up. So knees for as you're driving up, you're thinking knees forward, chest stays where it is, chest up. Don't lift it, but don't let it drop. And then knees don't shoot back, and I'm just going to drive my hips straight up. I'm not driving them back. They're just coming straight up. I'm thinking about my knees forward, and I'm thinking about maintaining that back angle. And I think you'll be fine if you go back to a narrower stance. But I want to keep working on this one. So next week if you post, give me 2 videos of this. And give me one from this angle and one from right behind you, so I can actually see what's happening to your knee position. Okay. And we'll keep going with that. I was kind of all over the place with this one. Sorry. I guess I'm getting back into it, but, and it's a tricky one. It's tricky to figure out exactly what's wrong. They're kind of different things each rep. I'm just watching it one more time because I feel bad about not giving you a precise. So yeah, the main things are get your back angle set more, and we want to go straight up with the hips, not backing up. Okay, but overall bring your stance back in so we can work with a more appropriate stance, because some weird things are going to happen when it's too wide. So, give me those videos next week, and we will try this again. And I promise you, I will be a little bit more articulate on that one. So thank you for submitting, and let's do it again next week. Okay, we got to move on. Comfortable. Okay, let's see. Paul, here's my press for you to review. 127 pounds for 4. I recently moved to the intermediate B in the third week in. This has unstuck my bench presses, but press still stuck. Thinking about straight legs and a taut lower body, the wobbling butt and bent knees show otherwise. Loving the Lululemon Pace Breakers. We had a shorts recommendation or a request. My favorite training shorts, Lululemon Pace Breakers. I think they're great. And I have like a million pairs of them. Sorry, not the best angle. I also removed the audio. Okay, cool. There they are. Look at those shorts. Okay, let's see here. That one was okay. Okay. There's like the hint of the thing here, like the hint of the right movement pattern. So you got the idea. First of all, Can I pause this? Is there like a pause? I can't pause this. Oh, there we go. It's down here. Okay. Stance wise, you want your squat stance. So you want a wide base of support with the press, which means you're going to take your squat stance, which should be a little wider than that. Heels, shoulder width, toes pointed out, 30 to 40 degrees, right? You just like a wider base is going to give you more stability and help you, dial in that stretch reflex. Just going to make you feel, like I said, more stable. So easy fix, widen your stance. Grip looks pretty good. Elbows look like they're slightly in front of the bar. Yeah, you got soft knees there. And the hip motion is a little off. That was it. I think that was the same one. Yeah, so this weight might be a little heavy to try and fix this stuff. You might need to back off a little bit just to get the feel for it, because your whole body's shaking, so it makes me think that this is it's a lot. But yeah, your knees are soft, so that's a power leak right there. And the only way to fix that is to lock your knees. So when you're here with the wider stance, you want to be flexing. You want to be locking your knee joint, like you're trying to show off your quad, like you're on stage at a bodybuilding show and like posing. And if your quads don't hurt when you're done with your set of presses, they were soft. You let your knees unlock. Very, very common problem with the press is soft knees, because guys want to do a push press. They want to use a little bit of knee extension to help get the bar going. And it's just, you just have to be conscious of it. You've got to really feel like you're flexing those quads. So from here, you're taking a big breath, you're flexing your quads, locking your knees, squeezing your abs real tight. And then we're going to reach forward from here, okay? Not from here and not from here. We're going to reach forward from your thighs, okay? And this section right here is going to go this way aggressively, okay? So it's got to be like a pop. Like, remember, the point of this is like the bounce at the bottom of the squat, but instead of going vertically, it's going horizontally, right? You're pushing, and the key part of the push is the rebound. You don't just push your hips out and leave them there. You bounce off the end of that stretch, just like you bounce off the end of the stretch in the bottom of the squat. It's down and up. It's forward and back. And a lot of times guys get the forward part right. They say, oh, all I do is push my hips forward because that gets my head out of the way and clears the path for the bar, which is only one of the three reasons that we do that, right? Yes, the hip motion clears a path, gets your head out of the way, but it also creates that stretch reflex, right? But that comes from the hips going out and back, right? So that rebound translates to a vertical rebound with the bar where it dips. And the third reason is, as the hips come back to neutral, it pushes your torso under the bar. So if you time it right, as the bar bounces up, right? Oops, excuse me. As the bar bounces up, right, you're coming this way. So the bar's going up and back, and you're going back and forward. And so if you get the timing right, you bounce it and you're right underneath it, right? As opposed to pushing your hips out to do one of those things and clear the path, but now you're back here the whole time, right? So it's a really important part that a lot of people miss, which is the push your hips out and bounce and pull them back. I mean, if you bounce hard enough, they'll come back naturally, but I have a feeling that you're just leaving them out there. Let's watch a couple of these and we'll just pay attention to your hips. We already talked about the soft knees, so we're not going to talk about that anymore. It's a little, it's subtle. That one right there, and I don't even think this timeline thing is right, but that rep was out and stay out. So let's see if we can see it again. That one is kind of a bounce off the knees, not the hips. I think that's the one I keep complimenting you on. That was a pretty good one. This one, they just stay, right? And then the knees start bending. Okay, so that's movement wise, you've got to work on locking the knees and then pushing the hips out and letting them recoil back. Now, and keeping the knees locked while you do that. Now, another part of this is how aggressive you're getting with the hip thrusting. It's got to be like, the press is one of the lifts, probably more so than any other lift, where controlled aggression really helps you. Like I always tell my clients, like, take out all your anger on the press. Like, unrack the bar like you're mad at it. Get tight like you're like someone just like, you just got in a fight with your wife or your girlfriend, like you're just angry and you're holding it all that tension in your body. And then like pop the hips, like just like fuck, boom, like out and back, like you're mad, right? And then you'll see when you get really aggressive with it and you really thrust them out. And again, not from the low back, because that aggressive thrusting where you're trying to get that extension from your lumbar spine is going to hurt. You're going to feel a little pinch in your back. But down here, right, your thighs, you're popping your thighs forward and you're tense and you're angry and you're squeezing the bar. Everything's super tight. And then you just bang, like really far forward, like as far as you can, with everything locked without letting the knees unlock. And then when you do it, right, like a lot of times having me there yelling at you to the point that you're irritated at me and you take it out on the bar, all of a sudden they get this pop and the bar jumps up off the chest. Right? Because they're just like, dude, stop yelling at me, and like they're annoyed, and that aggression translates to it, like, and the bar goes like weightless, and they're like, wow, that was so much easier. So this is one of the lifts where you really want to get mad. You really want to take that aggression. Don't get sloppy. Keep everything tight, but like tense body and aggressive hip thrusting is gonna translate to a more powerful bounce. And that's going to feel easier. This is also one of the lifts that goes better the faster you go through it. Squats, bench press, deadlift, those you can all do you can take a break in between reps. This one, you want to get the bar back down, get reset, and go. Like, the longer you stand there and hold it and think about it, the more tired your arms get. You get psyched out. If you just try and go through the set faster, aggressively, with intention, like you will feel that you'll get to rep 5 and you'll feel like that was an easier set because you tried to do it a little quicker. Not sloppy. Don't be sloppy. Make sure you reset. But the faster you go through this and the more aggressively you pop the hips, the easier this lift will be. So I think overall you got the basics down. It's really just a matter of, tightening up the legs, widening the stance a little bit, and being more like pissed off with like you should be trying to pop those hips to these wooden boxes, just out, right? And make it dynamic so that it actually translates. You can see the bar isn't even really bouncing all that much. Like your hips are moving. I just noticed this, and I should have noticed it earlier. But if you watch the bar, we'll watch it one more time. If you watch the barbell, right? The whole point is when you pop the hips, you should see the bar dip and pop up. You're moving your hips and your hands aren't even moving. They're staying like right in the same place, right? Like if you just watch this hand, this and this elbow, this should come down. It should dip down, right? And then it should pop up. When you pop the hips, boom. My hand should go like this, right? Because you're holding all this weight, and the natural reaction of that hip thrust is this dip and bounce. But you're doing all the hip work and your hand doesn't move at all. It's just you're flinging your hips around and the hand isn't moving, which means you're not even getting the benefit of that bounce. So get those elbows tucked in, get real tight, like your whole body from your fingertips down to your toes should just be pure tension. Like I said, your quads should hurt when you're done with your set of presses because you're flexing so hard the whole time and you never let up. And then if your body's rigid like that and you aggressively throw your hips forward, the bar will have to bounce. The fact that you can hold it, wiggle your hips around, and the hand doesn't move at all means that you're not tight enough. You're not tense enough and you're not being aggressive enough. See, your hand didn't move. See if we get another one here. Watch your fist. Like nothing. Okay. I should see it dip. Okay. So what you can do is take the empty bar out, or maybe like very lightweight, 65 pounds, and just don't even worry about pressing it. Just hold it tight and work on feeling that bounce. Like kind of like the bounce pause squat that I'm always talking about, where you go down to the bottom of the squat and you just bounce a few times to feel the stretch reflex. Same thing here. Don't worry about pressing it. Just hold it and work on the pop and feel the rhythm, right? Feel the elbows drop and spring up, that natural stretch reflex. Do it a couple times. Bounce, boom, bounce, boom, bounce, boom, and then bounce, press, right? You can think about like the rhythm, like I just told this to another client. I know in CPR, they use staying alive, like dun, 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 right? That 100 beats per minute, right? Bounce, press, bounce, press, bounce, press. 1, 2, and then you go for it. Okay, so get that rhythm in your head. Try and feel the rhythm without even worrying about pressing it. Once you feel it kind of coming up, right, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. Hips, and then it dips and comes up, hips, and then I'm like, okay, and then you try and catch it. You catch that rebound and you drive it to the top. Okay, work on that stuff. Work on feeling the bounce without pressing it. And then let's see another video where everything's tight and, you know, you got it more dialed in, and then we can go from there. Okay. Good video. Thanks. A lot to talk about here. So we'll move on and, okay. jeepnsteak. All right. What correction should I make for my back angle on the squat? I felt I could have grinded out the 5th, but felt my lumbar straining on the 4th. The latter reps have a noticeable change in back angle between the descent and driving up. I did notice some knee slide at the bottom of a few. My proportions are longer legs and shorter torso. Okay, long legs, short torso. So that means you're going to be very leaned over, right? I always mess this up. Long legs, short torso. Yes, long torso, short legs is vertical. Long legs, short torso is going to be more horizontal, I think. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong on that. All right, here we go. 310 by 4. Close. We're close to 315. I think a long time ago I yelled at you that you need to be at 315. Okay. Little shallow on that one. That was pretty good. It's just a little depth thing here. Yeah, this is easy, man. And by the way, you could have definitely gotten the 5th one. So the first rep I'm going to ignore because you kind of hesitate leaning over. You do the knees first and then lean over. Just a little bit of a delay. They should happen at the same time. If you watch your back angle here, see that? The knees went out first and then you leaned over, but then you fixed it on the rest of them. So don't worry about that. So you want to lean over. Yeah, that's good. And let me just watch your knees and then we'll talk about the big thing. So the only thing missing here and the reason that you're seeing the knee slide is just because you're not finishing sitting back into the bottom. Okay. So like when you're, let me see if I can scrub through this. I mean, that looks like it's a depth. See if it happens on a different one. Knees forward and then sit back. Yeah. I mean, these are very good. I keep getting the sense that you're a little high and then when I pause it, you're like perfect. So that's happened earlier in this video too. So maybe my eyes are off today. All right. Let's see if I can slow these down. Actually, I think I have a thing that slows these down. Hey, that's pretty cool. So knees forward and then, I mean, that's to depth right there. Hips out of the bottom. It's pretty good. I got to use this tool more often. All right. So we're looking at leaning over. Like you could arguably lean over a little more aggressively right away. Like just dive for the floor a little bit more because we're going to see where you end up. But you've got the same back angle at the bottom there. That one looks, it's close. All right. All right, let me go back to like normal speed here. And we'll just watch this last one. Yeah, so your errors are like very subtle. Overall, very, very good work here. The only thing that I would critique, and I want to make sure you're not lifting your chest too soon. No, you're not. This is like almost an imperceptible amount of shifting you need to do because you're like you're right there. But if you think about on the deadlift, and I don't know if you've had this issue, but one of the things we say on the deadlift is that before you go set your back and pull, so you put the rep down and then you're going to get the bar, you're going to roll it back to your shins. Before you squeeze your chest up and try and pick it up, you want to shift your weight back to the heels a little bit, right? Now, that doesn't mean drop your butt, change the back angle. It just means you're taking your weight and you're just kind of rocking back. And it's very subtle. It's like you'll see the client move like an inch, but it's a game changer in terms of keeping that bar on the legs. Because even if you're just like the pressure's like a little bit too much on the toes, the bar's going to swing off the legs. So the same thing here, it's like 1 inch of shifting back more. So the idea is as you go down in the squat, you're going to lean over, shove the knees out. And then at the halfway point, you stop thinking about the knees and you start thinking about reaching back with the hips, stretching back into the bottom, almost like you're trying to like reach back and sit on a box back here. So at this point in the squat, and I'll just diagram it for you. So like right about here, right? You've got the knees where they need to be. You've got your back angle set. Knees look like they could be out a little more, but right here, you want to shift your focus to just thinking about reaching back with your hips, right? This is good. This is good. All we need to do is have you try and tap this imaginary box with your butt. And in order to do that, you've got to keep the knees out and start stretching back into the bottom, just reaching back. And what that'll do is pull any forward motion back towards the heels a little bit. So if you were focused on leaning over and shoving the knees out and your weight was sort of drifting towards the toes, you get to the halfway point and you start thinking about reaching back for that imaginary box, and the weight will sort of shift back. So like maybe at the very bottom, when you're sitting back, you've got a little bit more pressure on the heels before you pop up. So you think about toes on the toes and then heels. You lean over, shove your knees out, weight goes towards your toes. As you stretch back into the bottom, weight shifts back towards your heels a little bit. You definitely don't want to be on your heels, but maybe 10% more of the pressure goes back to your heels. You get the bounce and then you drive back up. And you can practice this with, if you have like a box at your gym, you can just put like a 12-inch box back here. And then you can just, with lightweight, just tap it, and just having that cue, that tactile feedback from having to tap the box will do exactly what I'm trying to tell you to do immediately. Just the act of you reaching back for it will get you to sit back just a little bit more. The other thing you can play around with, like I said earlier, is these pause squats, or this is on my website, hornstrength.com/videos, under the legs thing. These videos of the pause squat and the bounce pause squat, also very good for feeling that position. So if we do a pause squat here, there's me. The idea is, and the instructions are all down here in the description for exactly what you should be thinking about, but you're going to take it down, and you've probably heard me talk about this before, and you're going to pause, right? And and one of the questions is my weight over the middle of my foot, or is it a little bit on the toes or a little bit too much on the heels? And if, in your case, if you come down to this position and you feel like And you notice when you stop, you kind of settle back a little bit. Like, in other words, you didn't stop in exactly the right place without having to shift. You kind of stop and then you naturally shift back to balance. That means that you were a little bit forward. And this is all I'm talking. This is the only thing I think is wrong with your squat, which is when you hit the bottom, you need to be a little bit more back in terms of where your weight is on your foot. And so just drilling these like 3-second pauses with the empty bar and your first warm up weight with weight will reinforce what that bottom position feels like. Cause that's all you need to know. You just need to know, like, what does the correct bottom position feel like? And then you'll know whether or not you got to it, right? You'll know that, like, I'm looking for that feeling of being balanced at the bottom. So I think if you're not already doing that, let me just make sure that you're, I would, if you're not already working with those pause squats every squat session, empty bar for 2 sets of 5, and then first set with weight, 95 pounds, 135, take it down, pause, feel that balance. And if you had to make an adjustment, note it, like, pay attention to, okay, every time I go down and pause, I have to shift back a little bit. So on this rep, I'm going to try and sit back a little bit more on my way to the bottom so that when I get there, I don't have to shift around at all. And okay, now I got to the bottom and I didn't have to make any adjustments. This is what it feels like. And then you just try and repeat that as you go up in weight. So again, the instructions are in the description of that video on YouTube, and it's on my website. So I would start working on that, and I think you're going to be great, because these are very, very good squats. You definitely had 5, which means you'd be going to 315. But just a minor shift in weight on the foot and you'll be good to go. Okay. And like, let that get a little bit more aggressive with that bounce. Let it bounce with a little bit of speed and pop out of it. And so you have some speed coming out of the bottom, and I think you'll be solid, man. Very, very good squats overall. So, you had a question too, which is, what criteria do you use to determine 2 sets versus 3 sets on accessory lifts in the templates that you prescribe? Okay, so good question. And if it's a new exercise you haven't been doing, just start with 2 sets. And if you want to do 3 sets because you like the exercise, and you can certainly do 3 sets. What I typically do is start with 2 sets, keep driving it up as much as I can. And then when it starts to get grindy, or I start to get stuck at a weight for like 1 or 2 weeks in a row, I can't break through, then I'll try and nudge it up by adding a 3rd set, which adds some volume. But if you can get away with 2 sets and add weight every time, then just do 2 sets. That being said, some guys want to do, if we're just talking about like curls or something, they want to do 3 sets of curls because they get a better pump. Do 3 sets of curls. It's really more of like a personal preference, but strategically you could, the move would be start with 2, and then when it starts to stall, add a 3rd set and go up from there. And you'll even get to the point where you're doing like a top set and then maybe like 2 lighter sets or something like that. Like, that's what I do with LTEs. Eventually, after they get heavy, 1 set of 8 to 10, and then I take off like 10% and do 1 or 2 more sets. And it's really just, whatever volume keeps it moving, or whatever I have time for. So don't overthink it. If the weights are moving up every week, you're making progress. And if they're not, you got to figure out a way to adjust it. And one of those things is adding more volume. If you start with 3 sets and then you adapt, then it's like, what are your choices are, you got to add a 4th set and then a 5th set. So like, why not start with 2? But it's, it's not the end of the world if you start with 3. So a lot of times I've got busy guys who don't have a lot of time to work out, and I will just say, just do 2, because it's better than nothing, and you can make pretty good progress on 2 sets. So, personal choice and a way to add extra volume, and no right answer here. Okay, last one. Still working on my squats, but not quite managed to iron out the previous pointers at working weights. Submitting a video of bench today with fingers crossed that there'll be less problems than my squats. Okay, let's take a look at your bench, and we'll take a look at that squat next time. All right, here we go. Check everything out here. All right, so feet look good. You got those things pulled way back, which I like. You got a big ass arch, which is good for powerlifting. Let's see. So we've got, I mean, this is great. The forearms are vertical, so you got the right grip, right? We're not seeing this angle, which looks really good. I love the feet here. A lot of times people have a problem when their butt comes up off the bench, and telling them to, normally because their feet will be here, right? And so it's easy to bridge up. But if you can tuck your feet back underneath you like this guy, it's very hard when your heels are wedged down like that and there's just tension on your quads from your feet being under your butt. It's hard to bridge up and lift your butt off the bench, which is illegal. Okay, so I just went right into the form check, but let's watch the set here. Oh, feet moving around a little bit. Oh, your butt is lifting up. Okay. Okay. All right. Good. There's a lot of good things about this bench press. So way fewer issues than your squat, and as would be expected. So, well, let's take these one at a time here. The feet moving around thing down there where you see your feet kicking around, that's a sign that you're not tight as you could be. Your feet do look very wedged in there, but you're a thinner guy, so you guys are pretty flexible. My advice is always walk your feet back. If this is your foot and this is your heel and this is the floor, walk your feet back underneath you until your heel lifts up about an inch. So just keep bringing your feet back until that heel has to come up off the ground about an inch, and then jam it down on the ground. And that wedging it down will put tension on the quads and usually prevent you from lifting your butt up off the bench. The fact that your feet, and they're glued in there. If you do it right, you're not moving those, like you won't see the feet flopping around like that rep because they're actually glued in there. Now, like I said, yours are very far back, and that would make me think that you would be good to go. But the fact that you can move them around means you're probably a little bit more flexible and can tuck them back even further underneath you. Because you can see your heel dancing around there. And you're taking on most of these, you're taking enough time to pause in between reps and reset. So a lot of guys, they lock out the rep and they come right back down. They lock out, they come right back down. You have to take a moment at the top to retighten everything that needs to be tightened, get another breath, because it just gets sloppier if you rush your reps. So you're breathing, you're locked out, eyes are good. Now you can see on this one, as you're fatiguing, and this is very common, if you watch your elbow here, if you watch your right elbow here, I believe on this rep, you're going to see it kind of shift this way. So you're going to be down here like this, and you're going to see as you push up, it's going to come up like this. So it makes this circular motion, which is very common when guys start to fatigue. And the reason is that is a more mechanically, see the elbow shoot back there? Hard to fix this. That one in particular, or your right one. The reason people do that is because this is a more efficient bar path, right? Because this is the balance point, the shoulder joint. So if we could move in a straight line right over the shoulder joint, this is a more mechanically efficient position, but we can't do that in the bench press because this is a position of shoulder impingement, right? When you lift your elbow up like this, you're impinging your rotator cuff tendon. You're trapping it. You can feel it, right? You can feel that pressure. And then if you do a bunch of reps like this, you're eventually going to saw a hole in your rotator cuff. Okay, so we have to bench down here. That's why we have you touch down here and not right here. So by touching here, you drop the elbows down, right, to like closer to the ribs, and then this little gap opens up and you're not damaging your rotator cuff. So when you come down, you're coming down here and then you're pushing back up to here, right? And that keeps the shoulders healthy. But this is a more mechanically, it's a compromise that we make, right? Because we want to be able to keep bench pressing. We don't want to have surgery, even though this would be a better position to bench in, right? So the default when you're struggling like you are is the elbows want to come back up here and get into that more advantageous position. But that's how, if you're a young guy, but over time, if you keep letting that happen, you're going to have some shoulder problems. So you have to think about keeping them tucked, not down here like this, but as you push up, try not to let them come up like that. Okay. And that's just a matter of you being more aware of it. So, but I mean, at a rep that's grinding like that, like you're just trying to get it up any way you can. So I'm not faulting you for that, but just be aware that that is a thing. Keep them in on the way down and on the way up. If you want to end up, if you don't want to end up with a lot of shoulder problems. Overall, this is great. I think you're doing a really good job. I think maybe trying to pull the feet back a little more would help with the bridging, or, you're out real wide with your legs. So you might want to bring the knees forward a little bit, but I think you're just flexible. I think you're a thinner, flexible guy. So, and it looks like your butt's staying on the bench once you got rid of that kind of dancing around looking for the right foot position. Resetting great. And overall, like this is like I like it. This is a solid powerlifting bench press. And now I will, just since we're talking about it, and we don't see a lot of bench presses, so this gives me a reason to rant a little bit. This, at some point, you're going to want to do some other assistance exercises for your chest, because take it from me, this version of the bench press, which is what I did for a very long time, and it's what we call like a powerlifting bench press with the big arch, right? You've got this, like, you're real flexible. So you got this huge arch up here. Okay, so what that's doing is it's shortening the range of motion, right? Because but if this is flat, right, and I arch up like that, right now I don't have to bring the bar down as much as if my back was flat on the ground. I'm shortening the range of motion. It allows me to lift more weight, right? That's why they do it. Okay, so it's kind of and it took me a long time to realize this, but it's not, this bench press like this is you should do, and you should get your numbers up, because it teaches you how to stay tight, teaches you how to, and to hit big numbers on the bench, to tick off those goals. But it is not that good of a chest builder in terms of like hypertrophy. So over time, especially like the flat only bench. So at some point after you've ticked off some of the goals, if you're working off those tier 1, tier 2 goals, right? You want to be adding in some lighter, like incline work where you're not arching so hard, dumbbell work where you're not arching so hard, to really get that stretch. And you'll notice, like, the first time you ever do like incline dumbbell bench press with like a full stretch at the bottom, you will be sore in a way that you've never felt on the bench press, because you're kind of tapping into muscle fibers that you're sort of prevented from hitting with this setup on the bench press with the big arch. So I still do flat bench presses, and because I want to keep my bench strong, and it does have benefits in terms of hypertrophy and like filling out your chest. You're going to definitely want to do some assistance exercises for that in the future. For now, this is probably good enough. And what do you got on there? That's like I don't know what weight's at, 185, 195. Is that a 15 or a 25? Do you tell me? Oops, I got my drawing tool on. 188. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, don't ignore me until, get that over 225 for a set of 5 for sure. And that will build your chest. I'm not saying it's not going to do anything. But as you move on to like intermediate advanced stuff, and you wonder like, hey man, I got my bench up to 315 and like my chest just doesn't really like look that good. Assistance exercise for the bench, that's the limiting factor with this one. So just a little aside, these are great. Just work on the things, work on keeping those elbows tucked. Other than that, I think you're doing a great job. Let's go back and work on that squat next time. And I think that's it. So I think we made it to the end. No more questions. Awesome, guys. Thank you for bearing with me today. It was a little rusty, it felt like. And I don't know why. Maybe just coming off a week-long break or something. But we will get back into it next week. I believe Friday. Yeah, my folks are coming into town to visit. So, but we will do, they come Saturday. So we will do Form Check Friday next Friday. And thank you guys all for participating. Any questions, anything that needs clarification from today, post it up in the comments for the video when I get it up later today. And I'm happy to discuss more if anything's confusing. And otherwise, I will see you guys in a week and on the subreddit. And have a great weekend. And thank you again for being part of this whole thing. See you guys.